looks like I am live, and if you saw my most recent live stream, which was earlier this week, it was about the spiritual meaning behind your weight gain. I had horrible issues with the audio, and I didn't want to take the video down because I thought it was really good information. I have no idea what was going on with that live, but I have my computer here and I'm gonna try to listen to it so I can see if the audio is good before I really get into it. This is only my third ever live stream, and I really feel like every live stream so far has been a huge learning lesson, which has its pros and cons. So let's see. Oop, there it is. There's my live stream. Let's see. Okay, this is gonna be kind of annoying. I'm gonna have the sound turned on my computer, but while I wait to make sure that the audio is good, I just wanted to say hi, happy Friday. My lovely girls, today we are going to be talking about how to get out of survival mode. And survival mode is something that I think all women, men, people, it's a state that all of us find ourselves in at some point in time in our lives. Let's see if this is good. Yeah, the audio sounds good. Okay, great. So on this channel and actually on all of my social media platforms, we talk about how to become your own dream girl and how to level up your life in all areas. And so we talk about feminine energy, we talk about manifestation, health and wellness, just a wide variety of topics of just how to become your own dream girl. And so today's video is super important because survival mode is the lowest of the low. If you are in survival mode, you cannot be in your feminine energy. Good luck manifesting anything. It is, in my opinion, the lowest vibrational place that you can be in. And so I think that there is so much discourse online about how to manifest and how to be in your feminine energy, but the reality is that so many women are in survival mode that they try to do like the whole feminine energy and manifesting thing, and it's like putting perfume on instead of taking a bath. It's gonna just be kind of like a band-aid on the problem. It's not actually gonna fix the root cause of what's going on. And I can say firsthand, this is something that I experienced for years. I discovered the law of attraction, gosh, like 8 years ago now, and for just as long, I was always like, why can't I get in my manifestations? Why can't I be in my feminine energy? It's because I was stuck in survival mode. And I actually just posted what I think, in my opinion, is a very helpful and useful TikTok, and I posted it on my Instagram as well, about 7 signs as to know, like, if you're in survival mode, these are like telltale signs that you are in survival mode. And so let's go ahead and get into it. What is survival mode? Survival mode is your body's natural response to intensely stressful situations and trauma and traumatic events, essentially. And when I say trauma, I think a lot of people assume that it has to be something super traumatic, like things that I probably can't talk about on YouTube because I would get demonetized, if you know what I mean. But the reality is that going through something traumatic can be as simple as not getting picked to be on your dodgeball team or be on someone's dodgeball team when you were like in 4th grade. It could be anything from a really stressful job. It could be not having a parent present. It could be a abusive household. It could be a bad breakup. It could be, just a wide variety of circumstances. And survival mode it's important. We have survival mode as part of our mechanism, like our body's mechanism, for a reason. So let's think of like a really stressful situation, like you hear about in the news every now and then, of like a mother lifting up a car to save her child. And under normal circumstances, that's not possible. But when your body is in survival mode, its entire focus is making sure that you can survive. And so what this looks like is it shuts down non-essential functions in your body. So your digestion will get paused or turned off. You'll have a hard time sleeping, your heart rate will be pumping, your blood even turns a little bit more acidic. Your entire body is just focused on outrunning the threat or overcoming the issue. And the reality is that a lot of people are stuck in survival mode today. If I had to give an estimate, now that I recognize the signs and I have gotten myself out of it, I'd say probably 80% of women are in survival mode these days, whether that's because you're a single mom, you might not be a single mom, but you're trying to be a full-time, 9 to 5 career woman and a full-time mom, and you're dealing with horrible in-laws, or you have a toxic boyfriend, or you're trying to maintain all of the things that women are trying to do these days with having your dream body, having to present a certain like aesthetic on social media and having to look a certain way and having to do all these things. And so survival mode is really beneficial, but we're not designed to be in survival mode for really long periods of time. It will wreak havoc on your body's systems. So to give you a couple of signs as to how you'll know you're in survival mode, but I really would recommend checking out that Instagram and TikTok video that I did, because it's a little bit more in depth, and this video is going to be quite long, and so I'm trying to minimize that as much as possible. But some examples are, like I said, your digestion will go to hell. That could be extreme bloating, which is what I've experienced in the past, inability to go to the bathroom, going to the bathroom all the time. For me, it also presented itself in I just looked a lot older. Like, there was a period in my life where I felt like I was aging really rapidly. I was also having really bad skin problems. I was never ever able to sleep at night. Like, I would try everything. I would try, no phones after a certain time, taking melatonin, listening to sleep meditations, and I would never be able to stay asleep through the night. Another one is having like really intense emotional mood swings, getting triggered all of the time, always feeling overstimulated and overwhelmed, never being able to focus on anything, just constantly living in a state of anxiety and like essentially high blood pressure. I'm sure that's probably a sign of survival mode. And so survival mode it's tough, because the thing is that our bodies, if we experience a traumatic event, because that's life, you might get in a car accident, God forbid, or have a family member pass, or be in a tough financial situation. The number one priority, actually, let's say this, your number one priority for when you're in survival mode, if you need to get out of it, is you need to get safe. And I know it's not always possible to escape a survival mode type situation right away, but we'll get into that in the next tip of what you can do even if you can't get out of the situation right away. Let's say that you still live in a toxic family environment and you don't have a choice. You have to live with these people even though they're really toxic. But if you can, your number one priority is to get safe. So heaven above, if you are in a toxic situation, a very dangerous, unsafe situation, if you have to, get law enforcement involved. There are tons of resources out there for women who are in abusive, dangerous situations. If you're being, exploited in any way, please get help, even if it's your neighbor, even if it's your coworker, even if it's your therapist or a distant cousin or just someone that you kind of know. Get help and get safe, because the thing is, our body is not able to process traumatic events if you are still going through those traumatic events. Our nervous system needs to feel rested, and it needs to feel safe, and it needs to feel, what's the opposite of elevated? Like de-escalated, in order for us to properly process the emotions of going through a traumatic event. And this makes sense. I know this firsthand. I have been in plenty of relationships where it's been just absolutely toxic, and you just like, your life is falling apart around you. And it's not until months later, when you're away from the guy, when you're looking back on it and you're like, oh, actually he was super manipulative and he was narcissistic, but you're not able to like come to terms with what has happened to you if you are still unsafe and if you are still getting triggered on the daily because you're in a situation where you're in survival mode. I always have my notes and my laptop with me, because I just do these massive brain dumps when I'm coming up with like my scripts and putting all my thoughts and research together, and there's just no way I'm gonna memorize this, especially on a live. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. Let's see. Here's another thing. So the reason I say the number one step is to get safe is because, kind of like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you'll get like life advice from people, or there's just a lot of life advice in general on social media that's like, you need to level up your self-care, and this is what you need to do with your workout routine, and you have to get this done and that done, and they're all talking about like superficial things. when you're in survival mode, you need to make sure that you're getting a good return on investment for the energy that you have to put into a situation. So if you're in survival mode and you're thinking to yourself, you know what I need to do is I need to get some crystals. I love crystals, like literally in a couple rooms over, I have a bookshelf full of books and crystals, but getting crystals to like balance your chakras or whatever, that's not gonna help if you're in an abusive marriage. It's just not. So make sure that whatever effort that you undertake in order to get out of survival mode, it has to actually be something that's like pushing you further along and like actually benefiting your situation. I'm so glad that you want to up level your wardrobe, but if your boss is touching you inappropriately at work, it's not gonna fix it. So if you are not able to leave the situation right away, which I completely understand, the first thing that you can consider trying is actually leave the environment as often as possible. So if you are in a very stressful work environment per se, and for whatever reason you're not able to leave the job right away, leave the building as much as you can. So obviously don't get fired, but on your lunch breaks, like actually go outside and go somewhere, or even just sit in your car and be alone and be away from that toxic environment. If you're in a family situation where it's just the worst and you just can't be around your family or your boyfriend or something, actually, you know what, if you're in a toxic relationship with a man, just leave him. But I know it's not always possible. Maybe you have kids with him. Leave the house as often as you can. Go for walks, go to a local park, explore new restaurants, or if you're tight on money, there's plenty of free things to do. I've lived in like 5 to 7 states now. I've lived in lots of different states all over the United States, lots of different cities, rural areas. There's always free things to do in your area. So the next thing is try to see the toxic environment you're in as a lesson. And oh my God, I know this is hard. I tried this approach the last time I was in survival mode, where I just kept telling myself, one day I'll look back on this and I'll have learned a huge lesson about myself and I will have grown. It didn't really help me sleep at night in the moment, I'm gonna be honest with you, but looking back on it now, I am a much stronger person because of the situations I've been through. I don't know why I feel weird admitting this, because I literally have an entire video about it, but I have been through a divorce. I was divorced by the time I was 25. I have moved multiple times, like I said. Some of them have been somewhat against my will. I have been through, different types of toxic relationships and, stressful home environments and just a wide variety of traumatic events. And in the moment, it's so hard to see it as something that, one day I'll grow from this and one day this will be a lesson and something I can teach my kids. But try to have that mindset when you're in a really toxic situation that you just can't get out of right away. The next thing to do if you're in a situation, a toxic environment, a stressful environment where you can't leave right away, is to do everything in your power to lay the foundation for your next steps and for your new life. So something that I like to say is, if you're in a situation that you don't like, whether it's like you don't have the body that you want, you don't have the job that you want, you have 2 options. You can either accept things as they are and just say, okay, this is my reality now, or you can take steps to change it. And I know that can be so painful, especially if you still have like a little bit of a victim mentality and you're like, no, it's this person's fault, or this circumstance happened to me. Okay, great. It's not your fault that you were hurt in the past. It's not your fault that you've been through trauma, but it is your responsibility to fix it. It is your responsibility to change the situation if you want it to change. I'm in a very loving, happy relationship now, and I know at the end of the day my man would back me up and he would help get me out of anything, but you still have to be able to, get out of situations on your own if you absolutely have to. So you have to ask yourself, in any toxic situation, any situation where you're in survival mode, a horrible job, you're not in the city that you want to be in, am I willing to own this and accept this as my reality? Or am I willing to change it? Because you can complain all you want, justifiably, if you're in a toxic situation, but if you are doing nothing but complaining, okay, that's the reality that you're choosing then. I hate to, I feel like this is a tough love video, and normally my normal demeanor is like, I love, you know, talking to my girls, but right now I'm like, a little bit of tough love today. Another thing that I want to bring up, if you're in a toxic situation and the situation is toxic because other people are making it toxic, choose peace and neutrality over explosive arguments. Oh, I know this is hard. I know this is so hard. I know what it's like when you are in an environment with someone who is just, you're like, this person's a mess, this person is toxic, this person is like the cause of all of my survival mode, is the cause of all of my trauma, but I can't leave right away, whether that's a parent, and if that's the case, I am so sorry. I know what that's like to be in an environment with a parent who is just constantly triggering you and constantly stressing you out, and you know, maybe there's yelling, maybe there's other things going on. But if you can't leave right away, I know this is so hard, but in the meantime, if you want to make that snippy comment back to them, if you want to have the last word, don't. Do yourself a huge favor, and this is coming from someone who spent probably 15 to 20 years not learning this lesson and always talking back and always having something to say. If that person has direct control over you and your situation and you can't leave yet, choose peace over being right. You have to ask yourself sometimes, is this a hill that I'm willing to die on? You can have your opinions and be so confident and strong in who you are and what you believe in, but sometimes taking the high road and choosing neutrality and choosing peace in the situation and just saying, yep, okay, and then just leaving is what you have to do to make it through a toxic situation mentally until you're able to leave. So now that you have done step one and you've left your toxic, stressful environment, how to get out of survival mode, the number one thing that you have to do after leaving is rest. Oh, I know this is hard. I know this is so hard if you are the kind of woman who's like, go, go, go. You've just like hustled and grinded your way out of a stressful situation. You know, you've pulled yourself up by your fingernails, and now I'm telling you to slow down and rest. You're gonna be like, I don't have time for that. I know exactly what that means, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So no amount of like, okay, now I'm out of my stressful situation, I'm out of survival mode, yay, let me just keep going a million miles an hour. No. As I said at the beginning of this video, your body is not able to process the trapped emotions and the trauma, because trauma does leave physical effects in the body. I'm gonna go into this in a later either live or YouTube video about blocked emotions and trapped emotions and how experiencing trauma and stress for long periods of time or just experiencing it at all can trap emotions in your body and have physical symptoms. But you're not able to properly work through those symptoms, and you're not going to be properly able to like process what happened to you because something happened to you. I know it's so easy when we live in a society today that, you know, prioritizes like being okay to be like, oh no, like I just escaped my abusive ex-husband, but like I'm good, don't worry about it, it's in the past, like yay, let's go party. No. Rest, journal, meditate, acknowledge what has happened to you, get your nervous system back on a level where it's calm and it's relaxed. Rested women, in my opinion, like we can do anything. I don't think women prioritize rest nearly enough. And I know this is coming from a position of someone who works for themselves and who does not have children. But even when I was working 2 jobs as a content creator and a regular 9 to 5, 40 hours a week job, I was working out daily, I still made every effort to get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. So please, like, especially as women, we have more delicate hormones, we have more delicate bodies. I'm all for girl power, don't get me wrong, but we just require more rest than men do. This is scientific. And so once you're out of survival mode, step 1, rest. Or once you're out of that toxic situation, rest. The second thing that you need to do is you need to acknowledge that once you're out of that toxic situation, you need to ask yourself, am I still bringing this up? Oh man, we tell ourselves so many stories, right? Like, like we'll escape a toxic situation and then we'll cling on to it and we'll tell everyone we know about it, and we'll tell our new boyfriend about the old one, and we'll tell our new coworker about the old job. You have to realize that if you are too invested in how damaged you are, and if you're too invested in that old story of that person who was in survival mode, you will not spend nearly enough time and energy on, healing yourself and fixing yourself. So get really honest with yourself, and just, there's a point when you do need to like rest and digest and journal and do the inner work, which we'll get to in a second, like the specifics of the inner work that you need to do. But stop playing the victim if you're out of that situation. And I guess I should probably explain this a little bit more. Stop playing the victim to other people publicly. So if you are constantly carrying that baggage, carrying your trauma backpack of like, this is what happened to me, and I used to be in this situation, but you're not anymore, why are you still talking about it? Why are you still posting shady subtweets? Why are you still putting things on your Snapchat story and your Instagram story that reference the situation that you used to be in if you're not in that situation anymore? If you are too invested in how damaged you are, you will not spend time healing. So step number 2, get really honest with yourself. Make sure you're not in that victim mindset anymore. So while you are, on the outside, not dragging around that victim mindset, here's what you're gonna do internally. Here's the inner work that we're gonna do to really release and let go what happened to you in the past so you can get out of survival mode. So the first thing that you're gonna do when it comes to inner work, I keep saying the first thing, there's like so many different steps, I need to stop saying that. So what's really important here is to process blocked emotions and your stored trauma. So this is science. This is science. This has been scientifically proven that when your body goes through a stressful and traumatic situation and you are not able to process and release that emotion in the moment, it gets trapped in your body. So emotions are energy in motion. And if you're experiencing something that would, make you have an emotional reaction, like someone just makes you so freaking mad, and I keep saying bosses and boyfriends and family members, there's other situations, but that's all that's coming to mind right now. But some situation is making you so freaking mad, but you can't let it out in the moment, and you just like stuff it down and then never address it properly. That's going to give you some physical symptoms later down the line, like, the stuff that we talked about earlier, the trouble sleeping, the anxiety, the digestive issues, and all of that stuff. So here is how you release blocked emotions. You need to partake in emotional release activities. What's an emotional release activity, you might ask? This is life-changing. I was someone who would just always stuff things down. If you grew up in a household where it was like, suck it up, leave your feelings at the door, toughen up, walk it off, you will probably want to be one of these people as well who would just like stuff it down, you know what I mean? And so what you have to do is, it might not be appropriate in the situation that you're in, but if you have to, just hold on to it and do it as quickly as you can. You need to release that trapped emotion through something like, here's some examples of emotional release activities: screaming into a pillow. I know it sounds silly, and when I first heard about emotional release activities and someone, like the first example was screaming into a pillow, I was like, that's stupid. Like, who does that? This isn't high school anymore. It is so helpful to release the trapped emotions by screaming into a pillow. I even recently went through something really frustrating and stressful, and when I got home from it, my man was not in the house. I just straight up screamed out loud. I hope none of my neighbors heard it, but I just like stormed around the house. I was just like letting it out, and then I kind of like shook my body and then was like, okay, yeah, I feel so much better now. Working out is a great one. I know it's kind of a stereotype to like go for a run or an intense workout when you're angry, but it's been proven that you release endorphins when you work out, and that really helps to move that blocked emotion through your body. Even like dancing, I've heard of some people that do like dancing, like intense body movements. If I am like having a moment where I'm just stressed out and I'm not in survival mode anymore, but just talking about emotional release activities, if I've kind of like if a limiting belief has come across my mind, or something comes up through my day that's like mildly stressful, I will literally do like a full body shake. I find it very therapeutic. I have also heard of like somatic movement. I'm not super familiar with it, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on it, but my basic understanding of somatic movement is it's kind of like ways of moving energy through your body so that you can release like trapped energies and trapped stagnant emotions. So the goal of an emotional release activity is obviously to process the emotions in a healthy way so that you can move on from survival mode. But it's also to get you emotionally current. And getting emotionally current is, again, I'm doing an entire video, I don't know when, but it's on my roster to do like blocked emotions, emotional release activities, getting emotionally current. I'm gonna do a whole video on that because otherwise this video will be like 3 hours long. But a lot of people, like I mentioned a little bit earlier about people who carry around their trauma baggage, they're stuck emotionally, they're stuck in the past. And so that's the goal of the emotional release activity, and the getting safe and the feeling rested so you can properly process these emotions. Oh my gosh, I've been out of my last sort of section of my life where I was in true survival mode for almost 2 months now. And I first arrived here in Kansas City and moved in with my man and, I don't want to say started my new life because I still like really have so much love in my heart and for the people and situations that I was in before. But when I first got here, I was like, oh my gosh, great. Like I can't wait to go on my healing journey. My man is super supportive. All my friends and family back home are super supportive. Like I'm gonna get so emotionally current. I'm gonna heal. I'm gonna make it past all this trauma and we're just gonna get it over with and then we're gonna move on. And like for the first week, I had a couple of things that I processed, like traumatic childhood memories, more recent things that were really stressful. And I was like, great, that's it, we're done. And then as the weeks have gone on, like I'll dream about something and I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh wow, I need to process that. Or I'll just have like a random thing come up in my memory of like, whoa, I remember when I was a kid and I went through something, and then I'll go home and I'll process that. And so this is an ongoing activity, getting emotionally current and processing your emotions. Okay, let's see. The last 2 steps of the inner work, and again, I'm going to go into much more detail in future videos, is to get to grips with your triggers. So this is tough to say, but getting triggered is a choice. At first, it's an unconscious choice because as we've said, when you go through a traumatic experience, those emotions get trapped in your body and you haven't processed them properly. Later on, when something similar happens, that's what a trigger is. A trigger is, it's most of the time it's a subconscious thing. Like I won't get triggered and then be sitting there and be like, oh yes, I am getting triggered about this because when I was in 4th grade, I had this exact same thing happen to me. Like a lot of the time it's subconscious. You can't figure out what the trigger is. You just know that you're getting triggered. But then once you've done the inner work and you've, found a safe place to land, you are, processing your emotions and you're still getting triggered, that's a choice. So if you are getting triggered regularly and you're like, what's going on? Like I'm in my healing era, I'm trying to get out of survival mode, I feel like I'm growing as a person, I'm, elevating spiritually, I'm getting really in touch with my body and my emotions, but I'm still getting triggered, what's going on? My number 1 tip for overcoming triggers is you need to become the observer in your life. So you need to develop self-awareness. And when I did this mindset switch for myself, oh my gosh, it was a game changer. I actually started doing this when I was still in a situation when I was definitely in survival mode. I was so stressed out. And when I first learned about, becoming self-aware when it comes to your triggers, I was like, okay, like let me give this a shot and see what happens. It takes a while. It's not going to happen the first time that you get triggered, but every time you get a little bit more aware of what's going on. So like, for example, I'd have a customer be super disrespectful to me or something at work. I worked as a bank teller at my last job, and a lot of high highs in that job, but a lot of low lows in that job. So I'd have like a triggered moment with a customer where I would just be so pissed. And then I'd have to stop and think to myself, like to the point where I'd be rude to the customer, which I really want to say they deserved it. But I would just when you have that moment where you're sitting there and you're like, I'm so angry, this isn't like me, like what's going on? And so I'd have to sit with myself, and sometimes I wouldn't figure out what was going on until I went home, and then I'd be like, oh, I don't like that man, made this comment about my appearance because it made me feel like this, and it reminded me of this past experience that I had in college, and how in college I always felt like my only value that I had for men was my looks. And I went down this whole rabbit hole, did my emotional release activity, and moved on. And oh my God, the next couple times that I got hit on by a creepy old man at my job, I was just like, haha, here's your receipt, have a good one. And that was it, opposed to in the past when I would have that experience and I would spend days thinking about it, and I would just be like, how dare he, doesn't he know that is so wildly inappropriate, and blah, blah, blah. So become the third party observer when it comes to getting triggers. Instead of just having the trigger blowing up and then holding on to it, every time I get triggered now, I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, what is this about? So I'm not going to dive into specifics because my boyfriend is very, very private. You guys will probably never ever see him on my social medias, and I fully respect that and love that about him. But he and I, gosh, when was this? Like a week ago, he and I had an experience that triggered me. And luckily, like, tempers didn't flare or anything. We didn't like get into a fight. It was just something that I felt internally triggered by. And I'm so lucky that I'm in a stage of my like self-awareness and inner work journey now where I could just catch that and not react in that moment. And so I held on to it, and then like later, he was off, doing something, and I just sat down in my journal and I really got into it, and I was like, journaling, what is going on, what is happening? And then I realized, oh, he actually didn't do anything wrong. It's just because of this thing that happened to me in the past. And here's how I'm gonna work through it, and here's what I'm gonna remind myself of the next time that this happens. And guess what? We avoided a fight. We avoided, a lack of intimacy in the relationship. We actually probably got closer in the relationship because a couple days later I told him about it because he had done it again. And I was like, you know what? This feels like something that is worth bringing up in like a mature adult way. And so I brought it up with him, and he was like, oh, thank you for telling me. I didn't think anything of it. And we just moved on. So that's a great example of, becoming the third party observer when you get triggered. Because when you're getting triggered, it means something. It means that you have work to do. And we are all humans having a human experience. And as long as we are alive and living in the real world, we will have work to do. We will have new triggers to come up or to work through. Someone will comment something on, your social media. A relative will make a backhanded compliment. Someone will look at you funny at the grocery store, and you will have to do inner work on it. It's an ongoing process. And guess what? Every time you get triggered and then do inner work on it, you've learned something about yourself. You've deepened your relationship with yourself. You've deepened your relationship with others. And it's just, I don't know, it's like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders. I don't know. I feel just great. So anyway, the last thing that I'd like you to do if you are stuck in survival mode, and again, we will do an entire video on this, is what I like to call inner work. Inner work is something that I've referenced off and on throughout my various social media posts as of late. And to sum it up as quickly as possible, inner work is just like what it sounds like. It's working on yourself internally. Excuse me. It's healing. Inner work can be a wide variety of things. So there's a lot of different inner work tools that are very, very popular and trending. I am so thirsty. Sorry. Drink your water if you're watching this. I've been talking without rest for 33 minutes and 33 seconds. Hey, 3 4 threes. Anyway, I'll have to look up what that means later. So a lot of trending inner work topics that have come up recently, I've seen a lot like on TikTok and stuff, are like shadow work and inner child healing. And there's like the well-known ones like therapy is a great inner work tool, journaling, meditation, somatic healing, hypnotherapy. I don't think I have anything else listed on here, but inner work is just a very broad umbrella term for doing things actively to work through your traumas and triggers and to heal yourself. So what I want you to do is you know, you've made it out of your toxic situation, you've rested, you have worked through your blocked emotions, you've worked through your triggers, you have, you know, done maybe some self-care, you have dropped your addiction to suffering and your victim mentality. Do something to do inner work. So invest in healing yourself. Inner work is very basically put, it's deconstructing and then reconstructing your beliefs and your conditioning and the parts of yourself that no longer serve you. So it's breaking down old patterns, old beliefs, old trauma, old wounds, and rebuilding yourself to be who you want to be. I'm gonna do entire videos on all of those, basically all of those types of inner work that we just talked about. So definitely subscribe if you're interested in getting more information about that. But some signs that you need inner work is that, like all of the ones that I just described, that you feel the need to be busy 24/7, you have a hard time sitting down with your thoughts, you constantly are seeking answers, and you're always self-improving, your emotions are dysregulated, you're getting triggered, all of that good stuff. So what else do I have here? If you don't do your inner work, so yeah, if you don't do inner work, you are committing your energetic resources to things that no longer serve you. If you make the choice to not invest in your healing and level up, then you're making the choice to spend the rest of your life doing things that won't benefit you in any way. It's almost like I said a little bit earlier that, like, if you're in a situation that's not what you want it to be, you can either accept it or change it. You can either do inner work and level up and always be growing and always be striving for something new and always be improving and, you know, getting to know yourself better and improving your relationships, or you can stay stagnant or even go downhill if you are really traumatized and you're not doing your inner work. So you know the inner work is working when you feel less anxious, you're not getting triggered anymore, and when your external reality starts to reflect what you've got going on internally, that's when you know, okay, the inner work is working. So I'm not saying you need to do all of those different types of inner work, but do whichever ones work for you. So I have tried out a variety of inner work, and some of it works for me and some of it doesn't, and that's okay. I know people will beat you upside of the head telling you need to journal and you need to do yoga, but if that's not something that feels good, if it feels like a chore, it's not gonna be the inner work method for you. So I just wanna end off this video or this live stream by saying once more, the reason why it's so important to get out of survival mode is because this is just like the base level of consciousness. Everything else that I'm going to be talking about on my channel and on my social medias going forward have to be built upon someone who's not in survival mode anymore. You know, good luck leveling up your looks, your relationships, your job, your money, your family relationships, your situations, your body. Good luck changing any of that. Good luck manifesting anything, being in your feminine energy, anything like that, if you are in survival mode. And I know I saw this comment way earlier, but I was in such a roll. Anita, thank you for the hearts. I really appreciate that. I'm still getting used to like seeing people comment on here because I'm brand new to live streaming. So where I'm gonna leave you guys is with a journal prompt, planning on doing a journal prompt every video. So after watching this video, if you feel like this is you, you're in survival mode, you need to ask yourself, why am I in survival mode? And go ahead and list it all out. List out your mean third grade teacher and your boss and, you know, the one guy that is always in your DMs and never does anything, and, you know, the friend who's actually two-faced. Why are you in survival mode? Go ahead and list everything out, because if you don't actually acknowledge why you're in survival mode, if you don't actually get to the root of what's going on, good luck trying to change anything. So journal prompt, why am I in survival mode? Do I choose to accept this reality, or do I choose to change it? What would make my nervous system feel safe? So go ahead and journal on those prompts if you feel called to do so. If you are in survival mode, there is hope. There is hope. It's never too late. I wish you guys the best on your journey. I'm gonna scoot closer to the camera because I'm quite far away, but hey, if you're watching this, I love you. I see you if you're stuck in survival mode, and thank you so much for watching till the end. Feel free to subscribe down below if you are ready to level up your life in all areas, because I'm on that journey with you, and I will see you guys on YouTube next week, okay? Thank you guys for watching, bye.